Welcome, dear viewers, to a new episode of Dialogue Horizon. In this episode, we will definitely continue on the ongoing deadlock or impasse about the critical situation in the political arena. Till now, nothing looms on the horizon about the near solution to the conflict. And this reminds me of a wisdom of a very philosopher, a big philosopher. He said, further approach to an ideal behavior becomes more difficult the nearer we come to it. That's exactly what is happening. When we hear that in 2 days some signing will be initiated, when nothing happens. So we'll continue on this discussion about the different aspects of the deadlock which is happening these days in the country. I'm very happy to host in this episode our friend, Associate Professor Samani Hanoun. He's apart from being an economist, and he's active in universities, in the academic field, but he's very active in the political scene. Also, we have our friend Ustad Osman Wash, also known to most of us. He's an auditor, but also he's right in the middle of the political dilemma. Welcome, both of you, to this episode.
Thanks for this special invitation to join Dialogue Horizon, and a special greeting to the viewers of Dialogue Horizon. I'm happy to be a guest for this special episode.
Thank you for having me.
Okay, thank you both. We'll start by our friend, Associate Professor Samani Hanoun. Samani Hanoun will, as you know, last week or this week, the beginning of this week, a workshop was held and is still going in deliberations in South Sudan about the agreement which was signed on October 3rd, 2020. Almost 2 years plus, 2 years and nothing. Most of the people, they claim that even less than 10% of what was agreed upon and signed is not implemented. Some people, they attribute this to many reasons. First, sometimes they say that the implementation of the agreement, it required a lot of money, which the donors pledged, or the brokers of the peace agreement of Juba, they pledged to help to bridge the gap, to avail the necessary funds to implement the different articles of the this stopped or curtailed or aborted by the coup of 25th of October 2021, 1 year, 1 year after the signing of the agreement. Before that, also nothing happened. Even before that, nothing was implemented other than the power sharing, just power sharing between few armed struggle movements. Some people, they consider, they doubt the credibility of some of the articles of the agreement itself. Some also, they say that it is not inclusive because it did not include two important factions.
Yeah.
جبال النوبة عبد العزيز الحلو, South Kordofan عبد العزيز الحلو, and Darfur Jabal Marra area عبد الواحد محمد نور. These are two important armed struggle leaders who have foothold. They have areas. They have foothold in either in South Kordofan or in Jabal Marra. So to what can you attribute? Why the agreement is lurching? It's not going well.
Yeah, well, since the signatures of the agreement and up to now, the agreement faced through range of hurdles, through range of constraints that especially make implementation of agreement is so difficult, and that is actually shown by the less percentage of implementation of peace agreement. Since 2020 and up to now, the Sudanese political system passed through very critical time. It was magnified by military coup during 25 of October. So the agreement faced a range of hurdles, range of restrictions. The most important challenges facing the agreement, lack of finance, because most of the donors were stopped financing Sudan because of military change in Sudan during October 2020. And also, the range of tracks created by the agreement magnified the problem, and that actually what resulted in political congestion in Eastern Sudan. Eastern Sudan reject the multi-track system, and they also revolt against the multi-track system. So range of financial, administrative, strategic hurdles, they slow down the implementation of peace agreement. This is why the framework agreement recommends to make a revaluation for the performance of the agreement, and that led to a halt. This special workshop on Juba, which attended by all parties concerned, to share discussion about the status quo of the peace agreements, and also they can share to draw roadmap to the futures of peace agreement in Sudan. I think by all means the peace agreement facing a big challenge to exist, because part of the people who are not involved directly or they do not support the agreement, political parties and others, civil society organizations, they do not support the agreement. So the implementation was very low, and the percentage of implementation is far below expectations of the leader. This is why the international community and also the members and the stakeholders of the free agreement, they share a common vision that to revise the agreement in order to fulfill the remaining requirements, to make it perfect in order to be supported by a wide range of the Sudanese people, and especially the issue of the tracks to be revised. The federal systems also mentioned. The way to finance the agreement is also very important. So there are so many agendas to be revised in order to pave the way for future successful peace agreement within the agreement or the framework agreement. So I think very important that the workshops in Juba will pave the way for future of the peace agreement in Sudan, and that would result to enhance and accelerate the path of implementation of the agreement in Sudan. I hope that the next time there will be high rate of implementation for agreement, because simply the peace is the second slogan of the December Revolution and one of the principles of the December Revolution. So it is very important to make national consensus about importance of peace, and also to accelerate and enhance the implementation of peace in the future.
Okay, that's very good, very good. Some people, Ustaz Osman Wash, some people they add more reason for it, because they say some people they're saying that there are some foreign involvement, external involvement with specific agenda. They want to take the agreement as a vehicle to grant the South Kordofan and Blue Nile self-autonomy as the first step of dismantling the country. Do you agree to this, that there are some players, external players, are trying to through the agreement to grant these two regions, important regions, some kind of self-autonomy?
Let me say that it is not easy for external power to make that degree of dismantling Sudan if we Sudanese don't agree on it. But the failures, our history, say history we have, same agreements we have had failed because of the will of the people to implement what they are agreed for. That is very known in our history, in the Sudanese history. That is very known. But the last agreement, peace agreement, problems is muchly depend on the unrealisticness of the agreement itself from the beginning. It is said that we have to donate about $750 million for Darfur.
For 10 years, every year.
Yearly
750.
750 millions yearly for 10 years. That is 7 billion that is hell of money. That is not available in Sudan in any way. That is one thing. The other thing is that what we call the pledgers, the donors, they are not really real in making the pledges. This is a political one. These pledges has happened to South Sudan agreement, that the peace agreement, the comprehensive peace agreement, CBA, and the donation, the pledges never came to South Sudan. Same donations, same problems had been faced with about the agreement, mostly didn't come. Only when Darfur agreement in Doha, Qataris were able to make real difference for their pledges. Others, mainly, they don't done their pledges. So the history of agreement said that the money, the resources is very important for implementation of any agreement, either in development or reconstruction rebuilding of Darfur or any place, other places, or also in the integration of the armed forces and even the integration of paramilitaries. That is also in Sudan, because we are speaking concerning military, we are speaking about the groups, the rebel groups, and also the paramilitaries that made by the government of Sudan. So all this needs resources, reformation of this, integration of and rebuilding of Darfur or other places in South Kordofan or in Blue Nile will need a lot of money. That is not available to Sudan for the last 4 years. And whenever the donors said, they are not doing their pledge as well. So money is one of the things. The other thing is the political chaos working all over Sudan. There is no government, there is no plan, there is no everything. So the last 4 years, we don't have agreement, real agreement. Also, we don't have a government to implement any real plans. So it is a problem. The agreement needs a real plan to implement it in Darfur, South Kordofan, and also in Blue Nile. Others may be speaking about the groups that didn't sign. That is another thing. Yes, they have voices, but they are depending on the unimplementation of this agreement. The failure will give them credit to work out for more escalation.
Oh, so you think that
Because this question is very important about foreign intervention in Sudanese discourse, let me just to comment that this is, I assume, it is a part of the political propaganda that the framework also, there is foreign interference in peace agreement, there is foreign interference. If they mean the interference of the UN and the IGAD and African Union, Sudan is the member in this country. And this is, I think, it cannot be described as foreign interference. These are friends of Sudan, and Sudan signed agreement with the UN, with the African Union, with IGAD. So their support is highly welcome in order to facilitate the problem among the Sudanese people. So for me, I think there is no foreign intervention, especially in peace agreement. The only thing, there are some local hurdles and challenges that face the peace process, the community problem, the finance problem, and these are some tactic problems facing locally. they make it difficult to implement the peace. So we have to relax these assumptions. We have to look and to pave the way for better implementations of the peace agreement in future by under consent of Sudanese people and support of all Sudanese people to the peace agreement. So I don't think there is a foreign intervention or that harm or the peace process, but this is a positive intervention to support the peace process in Sudan.
So actually you are right. We don't have to consider the intervention of the
UN,
UNITAMS is a United Nations. We are
yeah,
member.
we are member,
African Union we are member.
Yeah.
IGAD is member.
Yeah, yeah.
So the
But
trilateral.
what is all known also, those are international that UNITAMS or the African Union and others. But also this organization became affected by the pressures from others. That is the internationally well known. In the UN is not that fair enough in many cases. But I don't blame UNITAMS in the problem of Darfur or the Juba agreement. But it is still working in Sudan in a way that is not really agreed upon in the Sudanese masses.
So yes, okay. Anyhow. Now we move to another, from Juba we move to the east.
Yes.
Actually, the same trio or the tripartite mechanism headed by UNITAMS, African Union, and IGAD, they are starting a workshop in the east, because east is not a joke now. We have to admit that the east has a problem. Long problem not created by this in the 4 years. A long problem of marginalization. Definitely, the East is really in deep trouble for quite a long time. Now, people talking about Darfur. Darfur is far better before the wars, far better than the East. Still, Darfur they have the resources, but in the East, they lack education, they lack health care for quite a long time. They were neglected. But now the tripartite or that tripartite mechanism is trying to make a workshop. It starts actually a workshop to resolve the problem of East after it is aggravated by the split between the tribes. Tribes. The biggest group of tribes, the Bija, headed by Ma'atirik, is definitely against the workshop and is not participating in the workshop. Not only this, is also threatening to block the East in case any agreement does not give the East power, a bite in the power sharing. How can you evaluate the whole situation, the ongoing workshop in the East, with the boycott of the largest group of tribes, which is the Bija? How can you evaluate?
Let us agree that there is a problem in the eastern Sudan, problem of serious poverty, problem of failure to access the basic needs of the human, the water, the health, education, the different social needs are totally neglected in that part of country. So again, we are worried about the experience of Darfur to move to the East Sudan. So most of Sudanese strongly believe that the eastern region of Sudan faces a strategic and very fundamental problem of poverty, although they have endowed resources and a lot of resources in that region. But the management of these resources not serve the interest of the local communities. So for that reason, the politicians and all stakeholders pay special attention to the case of Eastern Sudan. And a special workshop was held in order to address the problem and to find the way out. So very favorable recommendation are resulted from the workshops. Especially, they emphasize the importance of the federal system that will enhance local development in the region, and also they emphasize importance to support sustainable development in that region, and also the power sharing. They also emphasize the refusal to the track, which is a part of the manifestations of the Juba Agreement. So this is part of the challenges of the peace agreement. The Independent Tribes Council, headed by Tirik, also they make very clear statement that they will never join. If they were excluded from ongoing dialogue, they will block the Eastern Sudan again in order just to verify they are power enough to do the job. So I think under this very environment, high congestion environment, they need to relax this condition by participating all stakeholders in the Eastern region that can serve the peace and also sustainable development as mentioned by the workshop. So for instance, there is a problem in the Eastern region, and all Sudanese people strongly believe that we have to address the problem before being magnified like Darfur. So we are worried about the scenario of Darfur to be transferred to the Eastern region. So let us work together and let us take an immediate decision in order to solve the problem by sharing power with the Eastern region, by including the people of the Eastern region in decision-making process, and also we need to implement the federal system in order to empower the local people to pursue development and to maintain the sustainable development in that part of country.
Okay. Can you add something? But before,
Yes.
before that, can you, in your comment, in your addition to what Professor Samai said, can you add the dimension of the Red Sea?
Okay.
Crisis of the Red Sea, which is now it's becoming a battlefield for the big powers, Russia and America. Will it add to the complication? This included in your comment.
Yeah. First of all, we have to say that 2005 there was an agreement in Eritrea, in Asmara, exactly for
The local people to pursue development and to maintain the sustainable development in that part of country.
Okay. Can you add something? But before,
Yes.
before that, can you, in your comment, in your addition to what Professor Samai said, can you add the dimension of the Red Sea?
okay.
Crisis of the Red Sea, which is now it's becoming a battlefield for the big powers, Russia and America. Will it add to the complication? This included in your comment.
Yeah. First of all, we have to say that 2005 there was an agreement in Eritrea, in Asmara, exactly for the big Congress with the government of Sudan, and that peace was being implemented in a very good sense for the eastern side, and they have real work had been done since that. But when we came into Juba, there is no any faction, any military groups in Eastern at that time, but still we have a group completely different from that group of the Bija. The Bija are the main inhabitants of the area, the Eastern Bloc, and it is supposed to be around in any peace agreement. Juba excluded them. Juba excluded the Bija Congress, and there are the main inhabitants of this area. These make a lot of problems. Then they might be most of the Bija Congress thinking that they are isolated from Juba Agreement. That is one. The other thing, the workshop that were going on about this, is very isolated. Also, it is not inclusive because it is only run by the FFC. That is a political group who are challenged by many others from their group, that is the FF group, the Democratic Bloc, and the others who are already against them. So it is a problematic workshop. No expectation coming from this such a workshop. So the first thing, the revisiting of the 2005 agreement is very important. If to complement that agreement will be good other than making a completely different agreement with different people in Juba agreement. That is very problematic. The other thing, the area is very sensitive. As you said, Red Sea is an area of tensions already within Yemen. If there is problems, Eritrea has real problems there, and also in Yemen there is a lot of military work on the sea. And also we have to the end, we have Israel and Egypt, and also it is an area of very good high tension politically in the worldwide. Already, the Russians are seeking a step on that from the Sudanese government, and also we know the changes all over working in the power sharing in the whole world between America, maybe NATO and Russia. This will complicate many things, but now this is not the case we are dealing with in Eastern, because that is not a problem. But in Juba, regional powers, especially in the Gulf, who have been very active in making Juba agreement in the Eastern Sudan for reasons, they said, especially seeking for ports and other things in the Red Sea. So the regional effect, especially from the Gulf, may be very effective in making such a trouble, especially in Juba, because it is well articulated for the benefits of others than Sudanese.
Excuse me, Engineer, I just can comment to
Go
my
ahead, yeah.
colleague, Usman Wash. The very long sea coast of Eastern Sudan give a special geopolitical importance for Africa and Sudan as well, because that represents the gateway for whole Africa up to the South Africa. And also it is important for the trade, for investment, for security of international trade, for the investment in area. This is why there is very active competition among different regional and global forces. Regional, we have the Emirates and Egypt, and they are working very hard to have foothold in that part of Red Sea. The Russia and the US also competing in order to have a foothold in the Red Sea. So the region or Eastern region occupies a special strategic geopolitical importance for Sudan. This is why Eastern region takes more attention for Sudanese peoples, and we are worried about any security instability in that part of country. And also you need in the workshops that one of the recommendation, peoples of Eastern region rejects the Russian military forces in that part of the country. And also they make more recommendation, and they were raised slogans to welcome with Volker during the workshop. So I think international community will pay special attention to the problem of the Eastern Sudan, and especially on the seaport, that Abu Amama seaport for the interest of Emirates. Other seaport also will be ready for trades and inflow of capital to Africa and Sudan especially. So the region has its own geopolitical importance. It is not like any ordinary region in Sudan. It is important for Africa. It is important for the whole world. So for that special strategic importance, more attention should be given to the problem of the Eastern region, and you should consider all the stakeholders in the political reconcile in that files and that special problems.
So you believe the east of both of you believe that East Sudan, East they have a right. They have been marginalized for quite a long time, but they should not put the whole blame on the 4 past years. Not only it was marginalized for quite a long time.
Yeah,
they don't have to put the blame on the 4 years of this hectic 4 years, very erratic in every aspect. So we hope that the East will come to terms with what is going on in this. Also, we have another important question about the visit paid by Musa Faki. Musa Faki is the head of the African Commission
Yes.
of the African Union. It's a very important mechanism in the African Union. It seems that he is not happy about, that's what they are saying, because the African Commission did not contribute like the Arab League. They did not contribute in this dilemma of Sudan since it started. They sent just a representative like Muhammad Blabbad and some other, and they don't give him their full support, and even they don't comment on what is going on in the problem of the country. That's why when he was invited or asked to go to join in the workshop of the East, the work of the East, he refused. He refused because they say that he claimed that they were not told, they were not involved, they were not asked to be involved in what is going on in Sudan. But I don't know why when he came. What will be the role? Because Musa Faki, his role during the last years of the OCD regime his role did not play well in the roadmap of Mbeki. And can you just tell us about the African Union and the visit of Musa Faki
Yes,
and his rejection to invitation to join the workshop of
Yes, first of all, I would like to say that Musa Faki was a Chadian diplomat. He knows very well this region, especially Sudan, Darfur, and the rest of East Chad, and the complications over there. We know that there is real problems between Sudan and Chad about the issue of the militias going around Central Africa. This is a real problem between Sudan and Chad right now. Right now. The other thing that you know already, African Union should be the source of the information to the United Nations for the problem of Sudan as a country in the region. African Union was very organized organization, but now what we have seen, the UNITAMs led by United Nations had been very actively diminishing the role of IGAD and African Union. That make a lot of problem. Still, they are jointly working in the context of the trilateral mechanism, but still there is a problems in this issue. So they came here, and they already know also about the workshops that were working by FFC. They know already they are very decisive in this issue, because there is no agreement about the whole Sudanese political spectrum are there in the process, and even the military who are taking on the power right now were not joining that workshop. So it is very decisive when they know that the workshop now going on by FFC were very decisive. They don't want to be part on a decisive issue. This makes them alienate himself from working in that workshop. But still, what we have already said, the UN, especially the UNITAM's role in Sudan became very shaky, because they are making it for the interest of groups, because we know that there is rivaling groups in the UN now led by US and maybe the Europeans, that is in leading the process of UNITAMs. That makes it very difficult for other organizations, African Union and IGAD, to be a real supporter of this by information, by knowledge of the region and these things. So, I mean, Musa Faki is making a real message to whole Sudanese that it is you who decide, not the organizations anyway.
Okay, but also the conflict is that Musa Faki is saying that, and here the politicians or the Sudanese, they blame the African Union of not being involved.
No, African Union is the first to come and to make that the document also, because the the Prime Minister of Ethiopia is representing African Union. He came here and sit for long time, for long hours with the different factions to make that document available. And it is African Union who first led the Luba to come here to join for the process of more than months to make that happen.
Yes,
so African Union was there. Arab League was not there at all.
Arab League was
even
not there.
still right now, we know that there is an intervention of some Arab countries in this issue, especially Emirates and Saudi. We heard the names. I don't know the extent of their intervention, but that intervention was solely for themselves, not for the Arab League. Later we heard about Egypt and making a workshop also in Cairo. We heard that also for their interest, not the Arab League. So Arab League was out of the context, completely absent. So we know that African Union was leading, but now UNITAMS is making the role of African Union, weakening the role of African Union. Yes, that is
that's
what
maybe the concern of Musa Faki.
Yes, of course.
Yeah, I think, yes, I do agree with my colleague Osman that African Union, especially on ongoing political process, is playing very minor role. And major role played by the UNITAMS. UNITAMS leads the initiative. And this is why the African Union, whether Faki or Abiy Ahmedi, most of them, they were obliged to involve in any activity, whether middlemen for the peace or to involve in the Eastern region workshops. So the initiative mainly led by the UNITAMS, and this is why it makes the role of the African Unions relatively very poor than the first time, because in the first political congestion in Sudan between civil and military, they played greater role. And generally, the UN depends on its decisions on the African Unions. So, for instance, the UN involved directly in the Sudanese discourse, and that would make firing to the African Unions and others regional organization involved in Sudanese discourse. So direct involvement of the UN weakens the role of the other regional organizations in the current political process in Sudan.
So Musa Faki's stance is justifiable. Justified because he doesn't want to put himself in something which already went too far. He cannot place himself anywhere. So he's okay. That is okay. So in the end, all efforts were being done to get or to invoke or revoke the suspension of Sudan membership in the African Union, reinstate its membership. So it seems that from what is the reaction of Musa Faki, it is far-fetched.
That is also a reason, because the members of the Sudan was suspended in the African Union. So how he can involve in the political discourse? Because part of requirement, Sudan should have a full membership in order to involve in this
full democratic system.
Yeah, for democratic
well, actually,
system.
it was suspended immediately after the coup of 25th of October 2021.
He's not qualified to involve.
It was suspended since that time.
Yeah.
But it's not expected to be reinstated any soon before resolving the conflict.
I think after reconciliations of the conflict, they can relax this decision.
After the formation
of the
government.
Civil transitional government, yeah.
No, this is not the case, because still as an organization in Africa, he is in a position to speak about all the countries. So there is a problem in Sudan. They already, when there is a coup or change in government, before installing the government of Hamdok, they came here. At that time, Sudan is not part, because their membership was stopped, but he actively worked for the document that paved the way for Sudan to rejoin African Union. Now, after 25th of October, they say that they also dismissed Sudan from that membership because of this. Still, there is a role a political role to play until to come to rejoin Sudan as a country, because it's still, it is this suspension, it is a suspension, not cutting off Sudan from African Union. No way of that.
It's suspension.
Yeah, it is just suspension. So they are actively working. They are part of the trilateral mechanism with Africa, with UN, UNITAMS, African Union, and
you got.
But what is well known that these two regions, two regional organizations were not happy the leadership of UNITAMS in Sudan. That is the reality.
So
and many of the political spectrum were not happy with the leadership of UNITAMS in Sudan.
Okay, the leadership of UNITAM, yes, is from the United Nations, of course, because it is leaning, they are leaning to the FFC, the revolution, the creators of the revolution. That's
I think
why.
we have to differentiate, engineer, between two things. The first things, the interventions of the UN in the Sudanese discourse. And the second things, the approach of the UNITAMS inside Sudan. Intervention, I think, is a part of the obligations of Sudan as member in the UN. Like any other country in the world, UN intervene in order to settle any national dispute. But the way the UNITAMS lead the process is not acceptable by Sudanese people, and there are some majority of Sudanese people, they condemn the way the UNITAMS deal with the political problem.
Yes.
So it is a matter of approach, I think.
Approach,
not
a matter of approach,
yes.
maybe from the head of the Volker, maybe, is his character, but
to be revised.
anyhow, there is a conflict between him and many other political factions.
Yeah, it should be
Especially the East
modified, the approach.
Okay, now we have also we're talking about the framework agreement. It will pass by a very sticky and muddy issue. I want to have your views on it. The reform or restructuring of the armed forces. Now it seems that the gap is widening between the two big factions, the armed forces. When we talk about armed forces, we talk about all forces, but we have to put emphasis on the national army and the rapid support force. And we can just see that there is a start of conflict. But it is included in the framework agreement that this should be, the RSF should be integrated as part of the army units. Some, they say that they will play by well, they say that, okay, the RSF will be under the head of the Sovereign Council. This means not with integrated in the army. So it is halfway. So how can we resolve this problem? Start by Osman.
Yeah, let me clear one thing, that the rapid support forces was being legalized by the Legislative Council in Sudan by a law that is there. And that making it a force, a Sudanese force.
By
military,
law?
By law, military
law.
Sudanese force. Because before we have that, the one we have before is the border guards. That one was not by law, but it is just an administrative action, and that makes that forces later changed by law and became rapid support forces by law. And there is a law managing that issue, and even their role became more effective and more accountable to the authorities. That is one thing. The other thing is that we are thinking how to arrange the leadership of these forces. If these Sudan Armed Forces and the Rapid Support Forces, they are both by law, it is a military forces in Sudan. So restructuring this issue, now we heard from the military command that they are going to restructuring the military itself in a complete way. So it is a technical one. They have to agree on the basis of it, And it is also to make that in consensus between the overall politically. But any of these issues raised now without a mandate will be ineffective, because we said that there is a law on military forces and there is a law on RCP. There is a mandate, should be a mandate from the Sudanese masses. That means elected government who had the mandate to make this again, to revisit these two laws, to make it in a way acceptable to the Sudanese masses. Any individual case of restructuring, either from political or from the military, will not be effective at this moment.
It will be against the law.
Yes.
It will be against the law.
Yes.
Because they don't have any mandate, legal mandate, to nullify.
We already have two laws.
We have two laws.
Yeah.
Okay.
I think this is the most important file in the peace agreement. The security reform program is the most important for Sudanese people. And the negative signal sent by the military leaders in media is totally not accepted by Sudanese people. The increasing gap between the different forces which you mentioned in the framework agreement is not acceptable also, because I think that the bodies that secure the whole process is the military, is the security forces in Sudan, including armed forces, rapid support forces, the police, the intelligence, and the armed movement involved in the political or peace agreement. So all security forces should stick and should stop immediately releases to the media. As you mentioned, we receive different announcements from leaders about the increasing gap between these forces, and that will retain the whole civil transformation in Sudan. So I think one of the most important and urgent file to consider the security reform program, and should not be through media, through the announcement through media that will increase a lot of inconvenient environment for peace or for the progress.
It has to be behind closed doors.
Yeah, should be closed and panel discussion among the concerned party, not access to the media by all means. That will harm the process.
Okay.
So I think it is important.
A very clear message. Okay, gentlemen, I have my last question. It's very important, and also I have about 4 or 5 minutes. Some people, when they got fed up completely, they are talking about early elections. Some of the proponents to the election, because they are fed up of what is going on, they have to get a mandate somehow by government, and others, the opponents, they claim that running early election is extremely difficult. It needs time and money for the national census or the people. It will cost a lot of money. So in 2 minutes each, any one of you, both of you, each one's 2 minutes.
Yeah.
What can you say about early elections? You are for early elections?
Yeah, I support the early election as I committed to democracy. So I don't care whenever you start the election. I accept the election. This is the principle for me. At any time, I am ready to join the election.
The early election also?
Even the early elections. One thing, but let me just to make more comments about we need another workshops on the political system in Sudan. We need to recommend a special workshop in order to organize the political parties, in order even to organize the demonstrations during the democratic system. I strongly recommend this workshop, and also we need to identify which political system is acceptable to Sudanese people, presidential or parliament system.
Okay.
As I mentioned, for technical reason, we support the presidential system in Sudan, and we are ready. That means the presidential system will save the cost of of election and more effective and protect the national unity of the country. As far you have the federal system, is strongly recommended. If you not today, tomorrow, you will find this challenge.
One person.
Yeah, you need presidential system in order to check and balance with the federal system, because federal system tend to separate the region, and that will weaken the national unity of the nation.
We will make a dialogue.
Yeah, dialogue. Yeah, it is very important.
In this presidential,
yeah. Yes.
I agree. I myself,
yeah.
I agree with you fully.
Definitely.
Presidential system.
Yeah.
Let me say that the term itself is not correct about early election, because early election, that means we have a process of election. But the de facto government came after after the revolution. The only mandate it have is to make the election.
To make the election.
Yes, that is the only mandate they have, because they are not going to rule. They are a transitional authority to make that election for a political parties to rule. That is the mission. So they failed to do that, and now it is high time to go for election, not waiting for anything. It is not an early election. It is a mandated election to be done from 6 months after the revolution.
Okay, that's very clear. It's very clear. Now we are short of time, actually. Thank you, dear viewers. Thank you, first of all, my friends here, Professor, Associate Professor Samani Hanoun, Ustad Osman Wash. It was very good, hot episode. Thank you, dear viewers, for being with us in the last hour. We hope to see you next week on another issue of Dialogue Horizon. And bye.